Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to APDG's Dialogue in Design, Season 2, Episode 6. I'm Jacinta Leong, and I'm going to open with the acknowledgement of country. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, community, sea, and waters where we live and work. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Tonight we're going to be talking about the design process for 2067. My last two films that I worked on, Shang-Chi and Buckley's Chance, were released in cinemas this year, and I'm currently in Sydney working on Furiosa. Gareth.
Yes, my name is Gareth Wilkes. I was the art director on 2067. I have been in the film industry for nearly 20 years, so since I was 5 years old. I have worked as an art department coordinator. I've worked as a production accountant. I've worked in locations. I've done editing. I've done writing and directing of my own projects. But predominantly these days I'm an art director and moving into production design myself as well.
Lovely. My turn.
Jono, go.
Oh, thank you, Jacinta. Hi, my name's Jonathon Hyde-Neary, and I was one of two set decorators on 2067. Annalisa unfortunately can't make it tonight, so I'll be there for her. I've been in the industry for about 8 years. Predominantly between Sydney and Adelaide, mostly Sydney in the past 5 years. Currently, I'm working on an AMC production called Firebite, which is fabulous. And yeah, it's great to come online today and talk about our fantastic experience on 2067.
Thank you, Jono. I'm going to share screen. Well, essentially, tonight, everyone, Gareth and Jono and I are going to be freestyling our way through a slide recognition test. I've selected a few images and drawings from our production to just show the creative process that we went through once I work out which button to click. We shot this in Adelaide in 2018. We shot in the Adelaide studios and various locations in Adelaide, as well as a location in northern New South Wales. I pitched for the job with a lookbook, and the story is that we humans have been trashing the planet for decades, and it has reached a point of great damage. And the story that Seth Larney, our director, wanted to tell was that we should take stock of it and just stop what's being done that damages the planet. Just got a few more images from the lookbook. Some colours here, desaturated tones, and a concrete jungle. Spoiler alert, we do go to 2474. And this is a page, a mood board for the Destroyed City School. I really love looking at these images of abandoned, destructed places. And
Jack, I remember this was some of the first stuff you showed me as well when you brought me on board. The mood board was just, for me, it was so fantastically visual, and it allowed me to really see where you wanted to go. And I was so excited and terrified when I looked at it all. But it was such a journey to go on, starting with this stuff to see what we ended up with.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, gosh, fond memories.
Oh, yeah.
Not only sets, but our director Seth is wanted that high tech aspect to it as well. So we looked at holograms, and you can see the vastly different colours here, some brighter lights. I did a colour palette after looking at all the sets and reviewing all the scenes from A to B, just see how you use colour to set moods and tones from the beginning, the middle and the end.
Actually, Jacinta, just a funny little thing to interject with the colour. Remember that cake that I made? And it had to be like beige and beige on beige.
Yes.
With beige cream. And I was up until like 2 or 3 a.m. baking these doubles of these cakes. And you had to make it look, didn't we? We had to make it look beige.
Yeah, and fairly unfestive.
I've tasted your cooking, Jono. It's all beige.
Quite you.
And that also speaks to, of course, the fact that we don't just go, well, we didn't go to Woolworths. We put our heart and soul into this.
Do you know, actually going back to that previous image that you showed as well of those colour boards, I think what's really interesting as well, if you look at the Chronicorp laboratory, it's not just, these aren't just colour, you've got some of your textures in there. And I think what was so specific, but also so inspiring about your designs was that it wasn't just, oh, this is the colour. There was so much texture and detail, and so, there was so much life in everything that you designed. And I think for the most part, as much as I broke your heart in a few places, I think we got those textures, we got those colours, and we created that world. I'm looking at these boards now. They look so familiar, but probably more so because I know the finished product now. Like this is what we created.
Indeed. Thanks, Gareth. And you didn't break my heart with you did very. Oh, you and Jono and Annalisa and the whole team did amazingly to get so much in front of the camera. The city layout had to be considered, even if the audience doesn't notice. We wanted it in our own heads, the distances from where to where, the orientation for the lookout. So I've got a city view here, and then I've zoomed Chronicorp into here, and this set out here also takes place in it spans 3 time periods: 2047, 2067, and 2474. And then I've taken the Chronicorp lab here and then blown it up further for all these other story beats and moments within the area. A production still. Cumulus Effects did the visual effects on this production, and we also had an on-set visual effects supervisor, Mark Vandenberg. As one could expect, we did need visual effects for these vistas and holograms. We have a plan here by Charles Whittington of the brickworks. Was it Hallett's Brickworks?
Yeah, Hallett's Bricks, old Adelaide company.
Yeah, and we shot 3 scenes here. We shot this long tunnel here, this other corner which opened pretty much at the opening of the movie, and then this other section at the end of the movie. So it provided us with a really good shape for starters and texture, but we did have to add dressing, like graphics here, these pipes we added, and a lot of lighting as well. Mm.
Yeah, I remember there was, so we started out by employing somebody, the wonderful David Mush, who, it was one of his very first film jobs, but I also knew that he had a great skill working with LED lighting, which once we sniffed that out, I knew it, but I kept that a bit close to my chest. And then once I let that little cat out of the bag, the poor guy had a lot of work to do, and he did such an amazing job. I mean, the practical lighting, in this film just worked so well with your designs, Jacinta, I think. You know, like, particularly I remember standing in this very tunnel and having that that trailing red
Yes,
LED
the emergency.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he had it all programmed, and he could hit a button and away it went. And it was just, everything ran so smoothly when it came to his stuff. It was just very inspired and great to work with him.
Oh, incredible. And so appropriate for our film work. He came with his own DMX units and kits and toolboxes.
Yeah.
Oh, this was that opening scene that I mentioned before in the corner of the tunnels. But what I wanted to show here was that Matt Hatton had, a concept designer, had offered up different, you know, it's a small handheld ergonomic prop, and he'd suggested at least 6 of these. Seth chose this one here at the end, and we had it 3D printed.
Oh, and this was the one that I'm just remembering now. It was, yeah, so we had Bryce had done a model and printed it, and it was designed to fit in an actual projector, a miniature little square projector that was about this big. And was it me that put, I think...
You did. You programmed it.
Yeah, so if you look at the picture there where his eye's being red, and that red line is not done in visual effects, I don't believe. I think that was done practically on the day.
Yes.
And there's a little mini projector, and I designed a little kind of animation that played. But the tricky part about it was that the only way to trigger it was to press a button on the projector. So we had to, on the day, we had to press the button, put the projector in it, and I had timed it so that there was a certain amount of time that happened in the take before it actually started.
Oh, that's right. And then
no fancy remote controls for us.
No fancy remote controls, and it kept on running out of battery. So I think we wired it down. We wired it down the actor's sleeve, didn't we?
That's right. We did too. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Careful! Don't let me get nuts with the annotation tool. Frightening.
Actually, before we move on from that as well, I think the thing, one of the interesting parts about that as well was with the 3D printing. 3D printing, it may not seem like this is a new movie, and it may not seem like it was that long ago, but the technology with 3D printing has evolved quite a lot even since then. And this was when, you know, a lot of our stuff was coming back and had to have a lot of sanding and a lot of, you know, like it wasn't as fine a resolution as you can get now. So, you know, that became a tricky part of it as well.
Yes, I'll say. But it still got us closer than if we had, use today's technology today. There was an abattoir being demolished. So I went there, took plenty of photos like these fridge doors, ovens, canopy, these lovely doors here. And as they were demolishing, I tagged things like with orange gaffer tape, and we put it in a container and then sent that to Adelaide Studios. And Jeremy Love then took these pieces, as well as his own clever reference and sensibilities of shanty towns, and drew these wonderful little shelters. Like you can see the canopy here and those doors that we got here.
And that this all became quite a strong crossover between the construction department and the set decoration, because I remember we had very basic structures built by the construction department just so there was something to hang it all on. But Jono, you and Annalisa had quite a job ahead of you on that, didn't you?
Well, it was funny because we have this character down here in South Australia called John Blakey, and he's got this junkyard with the land of everything you could ever imagine. So he's a collector, but he collects things like old cars and barrels and chairs and bikes and scary looking dolls. And so it was kind of a one-stop shop for these sets. And you got a lot of detail and a lot of the old patina on these rusty things, which is part of this look here. And so we just got this massive pile of junk basically delivered to this location to add to these little huts. was crazy.
But you guys, I mean, when I think back as well, you guys did an amazing job of that set because you did not have long to put it together.
No, I didn't.
No.
And it was night shoots, and we were dressing during the day. But then it was a full street, which I think.
Yes.
Because I think
Amazing.
one of the things that was really tricky about this job, if we remember, I think we were talking about this the other day, was that there were a lot of sets in quite a contained period of time. I remember the last, what did I say it was? The last 6 days of the shoot, we had 9 sets to deliver. And not small sets. They were all fairly substantial.
Yes.
And then I think we had, like, within the first week of the shoot, we had 6 sets or something to deliver, and it didn't really let up.
No.
We didn't get the opportunity, like with a set like this. It was so detailed, but you know, Jono and Annalisa and their team did not have time to stop and think and smell the roses. It was just, you know, they knew what they were doing. They got in there, they got it done fast, and it looked so good on camera.
Oh, it did immensely well, you know, in such a short amount of time. So Annalisa and Jono and their team, we had casuals on some days as well. Even our runner Sophie Morgan was on set there too. But we filled that. It's about 70 metres that we dressed here, and another 30 metres around the corner. So with this shot here, we like the walkways because in the story, if you because the oxygen is so poor, Chronicorp make the synthetic oxygen, so you get this synthetic oxygen pumped into the buildings. But once you go outside, you have to wear a mask. Sound familiar? Anyway, Brian Carlin, concept illustrator, painted over that shot. We went through only about 3 or 4 drafts because he totally nailed it.
I'm having neon light flashbacks. So many neon signs. Yeah.
Gosh.
That particular, if you go back to that concept art, I mean, how many were in there? So many. So we were very thankful that that we got to hold the hands with the visual effects department, and we got to do some practically and some in visual effects. Otherwise, we would have probably not got there. You know.
Right on.
Yeah, but you know, the ones we did, I noticed them. I was looking out for them because I had neon sign nightmares for years afterwards, and
I'm sorry.
And they and they looked great.
They did.
Yeah,
they sure did.
Yeah.
And actually, looking at this as well, do you remember we painted the road?
Yes, that's right. We had a bit of yellow road marking because I thought, oh, just twist the pedestrian crossing a little.
Yeah,
and we did. Yeah. And we even had graffiti on the walls as well.
We did, done by our scenic artist Michael Wolfe.
Yes, it was removable because they were heritage listed buildings.
Yeah.
The flying machine, which delivers the synthetic oxygen, it has all these canisters underneath, and this tail here picks them up. The claw picks them up and delivers them to rooftops. And it was designed by Darko Markovic, who is he's from Belgrade, and he contacted me a few months before we started and said, have you got any work for me? And I went, oh yes, I do. And we 3D printed this model, and it ended up going on the desk of the CEO, Jackson, in Chronicorp's office. Oh, look, just some general layout and notes and planning for, we have storyboards here as well. Some very specific shots that Seth was after to sell that story. This is one of my El Cheapo maquettes. But again, it told.
Oh, I don't remember that one.
Yeah.
Oh.
It told the story because we had that tracking shot, and we had to make sure Ethan and
Jude.
the other character's name.
Jude.
Also out from the previous sketches. In the foreground are those semi-movable objects, whilst the shanties are on the other side. And Earl Dresner, our DP, specifically wanted that shot. He loves the foreground elements. And so I videoed that and sent it to him, and just to let him know ahead that we had worked that one out. Oops.
Hey, Jack, Adam Grace has a question for you. Were the coloured CO2 vehicle pictures CG renders or a painted model?
They were well, yes, indeed, they were. Sorry, Adam. Darko works in Fusion and Keyshot. So they were 3D models, but then when he painted them, funnily enough, he painted them, he did them in 2D, which blew my mind.
So yeah, so they were a digital, like we didn't, because we 3D printed it, I remember we did that, but that was never on camera, was it? That was more for, because we never painted that. That was just, we kept that grey, didn't we?
Yes. Yeah. We painted it. I don't know actually if you see it in the film, but we put it on Jackson's desk as a,
Right.
You know how CEOs love aircraft or miniatures of whatever they manufacture.
I definitely remember printing it, and I remember it sitting on my desk for a while. So it ended up on Jackson. So that's Deborah Malman's character's desk, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. But we kept it grey.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think yes. So Adam, the image was done by Marco, and then it was 3D printed without all those decals. That's the video. That was the scene at night, and it wasn't all neatly like that. We just left it there so that we could get trucks to and through. And here's one of the opening shots.
It's interesting to note, if I can interject, on those images. I wonder if anyone can notice, because it is a destroyed world and there's no, the oxygen's running out, and we know what makes oxygen: trees. There's no trees. So one of our challenges in set deck was to avoid every type of wood. No wood.
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
No wood, anything, if we saw wood, we'd be like
natural fibres.
So it's all synthetic, it's all metal, it's all plastic. There's no, which really does tell, which was part of the story, and also just in this vision, it tells this dirty, industrial, synthetic, gross sort of environment. And even just walking through that set, you felt it, because it was all just stuff that is not going to break down, and there's no natural wood, and you really did feel it.
Yeah, and I'm remembering, so I think you touched on it before, Jack, the walkways, we actually had to, what was that? That was plastic, wasn't it?
Plastic, yes.
Yeah, because we wanted to make them look airtight.
Yes, that's right. And we actually put atmosphere in it with smoke machines to sell that concept.
Yeah.
Wow, big dress. It's a very, to some people, I don't mind the look in terms of that it is a space, but I could imagine that one might think that it was a fairly soulless space, because of all the metal and no timber and no paper. And those masks as well. There was a concern that, we tried some other masks and were very concerned about the crew being reflected in them. So we vac formed our own.
Yes, we did. That's right.
We did.
Yeah, we had Tom Davies, as you can see here, we had Tom Davies and Marshall Turl, but we did actually also bring in Greg Sweeney partway through, and Greg stayed on for the length of the job as well. So we had, and then we had Matteo was quite junior at that point, but he's gone on to do a lot of stuff as well. There was a lot of prop manufacturing, because again, no natural fibers, very stylized, very futuristic, a world that doesn't really exist. So yeah, we had to bring all those people in.
Yes.
I think it's probably worth mentioning, and not so much in a negative way, but more in just to kind of give some context here, that 2067 was, for what it was trying to achieve, was an incredibly low budget film. And so there was a lot of creativity required and a lot of lateral thinking and a lot of work, a lot of heart and soul went into creating this film, because, we couldn't just throw money at things. We had to solve them another way. And I think that, when you look at the way that we did things, I think we achieved a lot more than our budget would tell you that we could have achieved, Yeah. Lots of great problem-solving crew. We had an amazing crew.
Yes.
I think that was what got us through this. What allowed this film to happen. It ran on the dedication of some very talented people.
It's probably one of my most favorite experiences in film so far. And the team, it was just, you turn up and you see your best friends, and the creativity goes from there. I mean, having a laugh and working with Jacinta so closely, and also Gareth, who's another one of my very good friends. It was a pleasure to work 20 hours a day.
Right on. I agree.
Didn't do that.
Yes, it was good. And those
23-hour days, 7-day weeks were worth every second.
Yes, they were.
I exaggerate. No, it was. I think that's ultimately that's how this film worked. Was that we were all in it together. We all really respected Jacinta's designs. I think everybody could see that they were worth investing in, and that's how we made it happen for less money than a film of this scale would ordinarily need.
Right. Yes, thank you, Gareth, and yes, what an amazing team. And I think we're naming a lot of names tonight because it's about the crew, because you can have the best equipment in the world, but if you don't have anyone to drive it, it's not worth anything. And so the crew were, dedicated and clever and very resourceful.
Yeah. Oh, and actually, I see here you're speaking of referencing people, the graphic designer, Gareth Davies. So he did such an amazing job, gave the whole world a very specific feel as well. But I think it's important to note that he has an amazing first name. And so when we first started this job, we had to take, a very fair democratic vote over which Gareth was going to be called Gareth and which one was going to be called Gaz. And of course I won, because it wasn't a democracy. I just said I'm Gareth. So Gareth Davies, and the rest of his life is Gareth, but on this job he was Gaz. He was always Gaz.
Oh yeah, Gaz man. Gaz man. Very, very talented designer himself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you like with the masks? Still talking about the masks. There were all the extras that were in the street that you saw earlier, and we had to make some sort of extras props for the background. And in this world, the people are so desperate; they're doing everything they can to survive, and so they're pulling bits and pieces of junk together to make masks. And that's how we did it. Really, we had a pile of junk, bits and pieces, bottles, cylinders, anything that people can do to survive in these masks. And it kind of almost reminds me of the beginning of the pandemic, when you saw people with the milk bottle masks, and the people were doing everything they could to protect themselves. And it was a really good journey for me, being involved with doing something like that, because you get in the world. I mean, really did get sucked into that world of, okay,
well, it was a unique challenge, I suppose, Jono, because as well, the whole concept of this story and the way this whole thing worked was that you could not have a person on screen exterior if they weren't wearing a mask. And with a mask, for a lot of people, had to come oxygen canisters, and we had to be able to explain and rationalize how somebody was outside with no oxygen.
Yeah.
And I loved being able to set those concepts up as well and sell them.
Yeah.
And it was quite a bit of method acting, what you were just saying, Jono, like the people, in that world would have had to do what.
Little did we know how skilled we would become at masks.
Right on.
Mm.
Just another set here, the White's apartment, some domesticity here with constructions by Andrew A. Catty and some construction photos as well, with some lighting integrated in as well. Sci-fi, it can be tricky, can't it? Because you don't want to go down cliches and tropes. And 2067 isn't that far in the future either. Like it's so there's always a debate as to whether or not it's a futuristic film or not. So I think that I wanted to do some geometrical shapes in these in the apartments, so that in the apartment block they were quite compact and they nested into each other. So there was a space saving there.
Mm. And I think looking at that particular set, that was a feat of amazing skill from our construction department. We had
John Moore,
supervisor John Moore, and construction manager Ashenden, and an amazing team behind them. Because I think I speak for John and Scott when I say thank you, Jacinta, for all the compound curves and the compound angles. We like them.
You're most welcome.
So yeah, I remember that the biggest challenge with this set was actually in the time frame and on the budget was being able to create that geometric look that you wanted, and they nailed it.
They sure did. Like curves are expensive, and I thought if I don't put them in, you can't climb up from there. You go for gold, and then you can only get trimmed back from there. And of course,
they got it done.
Yes. And this had a turnaround as well. We'll see the year 2047 with Ethan's parents, and then Robin Cuneen and Michael Wolff did a nighttime turnaround to 2067 where Ethan's all grown up.
That's right. It was overnight, wasn't it? So it was
overnight.
Like literally finished shooting one night, and then the next morning they wanted 20 years later.
Well, again, it's amazing. Again, on the set, even the fabrics we chose from a decoration angle were synthetic. Not necessarily you'd be able to tell if it was cotton or not, but just going with that synthetic vibe and, and what would people have? When their oxygen is the most important thing, dressing a set, it's quite minimal, which that's how it turned out. And it looks really quite nice with simple things,
Yes.
People value life.
Say again, Jono?
People value their life. And
yes, they do. They do. They do.
And did we had to have a rain rig.
We sure did.
We had a rain rig outside of there because I remember there was a test video of you singing.
Oh, the things we do.
Oh, we were hilarious.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah. What was that? Hang on, what were we singing? We were both doing it.
Raindrops keep falling on my
head.
But Gareth was there that night actually testing that the windows wouldn't leak because I had them tilted inwards. So inside the glass was tilted our way so that you wouldn't get reflections. So therefore, on the outside, you have the best opportunity for water to leak in. But no, it didn't.
No, we got away with
it. We did. Just some graphic art here by boys, friends, children.
But, the important thing about this, Jack, as well, is remember, none of this is on paper.
That's right. You're like, how do we get around it not being on paper? So it's
lots of like overhead transparency, plastic, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. It's a lovely film still.
Oh, is this the scene with the beige cake?
Yes, it is.
No, this is the scene with the telescope.
Oh, is it the telescope?
Beige cake is a bit horrific where the father gives him a
Yes.
present.
Yes.
Do you know, to be fair, we say beige cake. Don't get me wrong, it tasted bloody delicious. It looked like a piece of crap, but it tasted really quite yum. It got gobbled out, I kid you not.
Well, and look, it was deliberately beige because, you know, what should be a festive night of celebration was a night of upsetting and disappointment.
Yeah.
Upset and disappointment. Oh, these are some horrible sketches. I'll just move on. But I read the script and went, oh, this is what it might look like. These sketches here actually were, Seth gave them to me very early on. And I tried doing something that this was one of my first passes at what that time machine might be. A reference to the Hadron Collider. And then I tried this one. I like circles in this because chronology, chronograph, like a watch. So I always thought that there should be circles in it. And then Matt Hatton to the rescue. Matt did this amazing sketch with all these structures, wires. We both like Akira. And so you see all those wires stuffed out the back. And Seth said, want that one. So I modelled that. And again, going for gold, just keeping some concentric shapes here, like this arch, to keep selling that jet engine look. But then John Moore did some calculations and said, we'll need this type of machinery to actually raise them that high. So that was just prohibitively expensive. And we, slide recognition. By the way, Seth uses 3ds Max as well. And this is one of his first passes at what that time machine could be, what atmosphere is in it as it's being driven. But anyway, this art shape was expensive. So we opted for still a tall wall, but then because we didn't want a visual effects stuff above that, we put some handrails above it as if it were a second story. Drawings by the talented Kate Rawlins. Kate's now an assistant art director.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Yay. So she broke down that model. I mean, here's another thing. We wanted a number of facets to get that smooth shape. But after number crunching, John said, all the laser cutting involved, we will not meet construction targets. We've got to halve the number of facets. So anyway, we did, and I think it still worked out okay. Color selection.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, I'll put that, I won't put that on loop too much, but there were some colors there, and because of their reflectivity, they changed color with whatever light was being bounced around, and also what angle you were looking at it.
Have you guys seen the other question?
Oh no, I'm sorry, I haven't been. I can't multitask.
Yes, Katie is referring to the white apartment. She said, "Ha ha, compound curves." Would it have been worse if double parabolic?
I think I would have been fired, Katie, if I'd done double parabolic, like instant dismissal.
I probably would have taken her drawings and burnt them in a big fire.
That's it. That's it. Big shredder.
And then we would have built a square.
One big shoebox coming up.
Now, this brings back many memories. Now, I'd have to name a specific member of our construction team for this. Michael Kumnick played a big role in building this. In fact, you can just see the side of him in that second picture in from the left. He's yes, he stood there and stared at that, I think, for probably about 14 or 15 days.
Right.
but you know, he solved it, didn't he? Like there's so much arithmetic and geometry involved in getting that piece built.
Oh, right. A real puzzler.
Mm.
Mm.
Yep. And we had lots of CNC work done and all that sort of stuff. But he, I remember that was one of his main tasks. He's a good problem solver, that one.
Yes, yes. And very cheerful about it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure to be around.
So, and there's these geometrical challenges as well. Like, what a victory you sense after you solve it. Right?
Yeah. This was one of those moments, though, I do distinctly remember having to break your soul a little bit, Jack, and I'm sorry.
What happened?
Do you remember was it 24 facets?
Yes.
To create the curve.
Totally,
and and it was a timing issue because the budget was low. It wasn't actually so much a money issue. It's just because the budget was low. Pre was short, yes. And it got to a point where construction could build it, and we had the money to build it. We physically didn't have the time, and so we had to simplify down to 12, wasn't it?
Yeah. And no skin off our nose. I think it's turned out fine. Again, go for gold because it can only get cut back from there. Yeah. And I think it's also like where Seth's vision was, and also all of our personalities were fairly ambitious as well. And I think, but we were realistic too. Like we would always calibrate our expectations so that we could actually achieve it.
Mm. Yeah, there was a lot. That was, I must admit, like that was one of the things that was actually so great about working with Jacinta because, Jack, you were so, you know, you were. I want to say you were so amenable, but you also weren't like a complete doormat where you know, like you were really true to your designs and really fair to what they were, but you were also really open-minded about how we create this world within the realms of our possibilities. And it made it really good because obviously it hurt me every time we had to scale something back, but it was like we scaled the right things back, you know, because you stuck to your guns in a good way with the stuff that was really, that needed to be there, you know.
Right. Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Gareth.
I feel warm and fuzzy remembering working with you.
Oh,
you're a pleasure to work with.
Because we're being recorded, because you should hear the crap I've said about it.
Yeah, no, it was a pleasure. So good.
Certainly was for me.
Yeah.
Just some reference for time jump. I'll say again.
It was a big love-in.
Yeah, it was. It was. I mean, here's the thing too with crew and personalities. You know, in this world, we're not going to get on with everyone, but it really means a lot when you do. It makes it enjoyable and collaborative.
Yeah. You know, and I hated most people on this job, except for you two. So, you know, it was great.
Yes, Gareth.
Maybe they all hated me.
Oh, who could ever?
No.
Oh, I remember this. Jonah's concept art. It's amazing.
Oh.
Yes, because of our turnarounds. Yeah, Jonah was a keen bean, and he was champing at the bit. So I gave him some notes and an angle and some reference, and voila.
But this was an example where the concept art was so important because we had so little time to turn this lab around from brand new to to this rundown 400-year later thing, that we needed something that was really clear, had been approved, was, you know, and was a visual thing that we were trying to create. Rather, we didn't have that time for that back and forward of standing there and finessing. It was like, go make this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's right. In one shot, you see what had to be done. Yes, Jono. Sorry.
On that last picture, can I just point out the vines? You know what I'm going to say.
Go for it, Jono. Go for it.
So we got real vines from Queensland out of the jungle, but some of them were too heavy. So I was trying to think, well, how am I going to put all this weight and dress the vines on the thing? I was at Big W and I noticed some pool noodles. And I was like, I wonder if I can use these. And so we started carving up these pool noodles and melting them with a heat gun. It stank.
Thank you, Deb Morley.
Yeah, thank you, Deb Morley. But then we painted them, and when we put them next to the vines, they did their job. They blended in, and it cost nowhere near as much as what it would have cost if we'd actually molded them and had them, you know, and that was quite a bit of a win. I was like, but that's part of 2067.
Oh, totally. Absolutely a win, because I have to say, my background has been those larger budget jobs. And so my immediate thought was, these real vines from Queensland, let's mold them. Hello.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what I tend to do these days, but I was a bit more naive back then, and I was like, I can just pool noodle.
Yay, Jono, and the pool noodles. And actually, I don't have that photo right now, but I laid a few of the artificial vines of pool noodles onto the pile of real vines, and I could not tell. The only reason I could tell is because I knew where I put it. Look at the photo and you go.
The cool thing was, you know, vines have these splits where they sort of heal themselves, and when we melted it with the heat gun, the same thing happened. The pool noodle split a little bit, released some toxic fumes, but then when the paint hit it, it kind of did match, and it was really fun.
I'd like to state I wasn't in the room during the melting of the pool noodles, but I would assume you wore a mask.
We had respirators on.
I'm just checking. Yeah.
No.
And Courtney Westbrook, pool noodles are surprisingly helpful in film. Yeah, they really are. I think everyone should go out and buy shares in a pool noodle company.
Oh yeah,
That's it.
I want to make a dress for Halloween out of pool noodles.
Oh, I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Could be pool noodle ivy, you know, poison ivy. Anyway. Sorry.
Next, Julie.
Oh, there's Robin Caneen. She was our set finisher, directly under Michael Wolff, the head scenic.
Yes, and what she's working out here is a 1 to 20. These are the individual panels. So from Jonah's image, she's actually looking at which panels she has to carve into, to create those cracks where vines have just forced their way in. And there's a little maquette here.
Can I just point out the quality of the amazing skeleton that I put?
That's me in the background.
We call them BG skeletons. They weren't the hero ones, but they got us by.
They did.
You can see down the bottom there those little
skeletons.
The little zappy things. So
these, yeah.
What were they called, Jacinta, on the time machine? They sort of spurted out the
electro nozzles.
Yeah. They're inside out hoses. So I went to Bunnings, bought things which we could put together and dress around the thing, and pulled it inside out. And I was like, oh, Jacinta, will that too? And you're like, yeah. And they looked okay. They looked pretty good.
Actually, going back to the time machine, I just remembered as well that because obviously due to time constraints and budget and all that, we had the entire lip of the time machine was CNC routed out of foam. But remember, because there was some action that took place on the bottom, we had to then reinforce the bottom, didn't we, Jack?
Yes.
Like it was all like we had all the polystyrene, but then it was like there was like a meter.
Yes.
It was like, okay, actors, only touch that bit.
Yes. Oh.
Which they did. It was fine.
Yeah. No, it certainly got us through.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't know.
Yes. Hey, can I just make a note about that? But the skeletons too, I have to say, I wish I'd spent more time on, I don't know, putting old tissue paper on them or something to just make them a bit more aged and realistic.
In you, Jack, because I feel like you didn't do enough.
Yeah, you didn't work hard enough.
Really let everyone down on this film.
I'm sorry.
But I should have cracked the whip harder.
Yeah. I'll try harder next time. So.
Yeah.
And the 2047 version of our lab had, just minimal furniture and dressing because they were in their early stages. Then 20 years later, we filled it out with a few more elements and set dressing, and there's a costume change as well.
Do you remember that? We ordered so many sheets of acrylic because every desk, again, no wood. Yeah. So everything had acrylic or glass or whatever. So, yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Actually, do you remember this day? I'm going to do another fess up. But all these cables here, right? So months before we were shooting, I was with Seth and Earl. We went to work every day in pre, and Seth said, "Oh, in this scene, can I have a lot of cables coming out of the machine there?" And I didn't do a drawing, and I said, "Yes, that's fine." And then on the day, oh, huge fess up. Seth said, "Where are all the cables?" So team Gareth, Jono, Kate and all the dressers just went outside into the car park where there was a stock of hoses, and with some grabber guns and timber, set it up in about 20 minutes.
Yeah, I trust that the reaction to the where are the cables answer was, your reaction was, "Oh yeah, they're just outside. I'll just go get them." Oh, we've all lived that life.
Kind of addictive though, that adrenaline. I love it. It's like, oh my God, let's pull something out of what we've got, and it was great. I loved every one of those experiences.
God, absolutely, yet another triumph.
Yeah.
Film still. Some visual effects, wispy atmosphere.
There's Marshall.
The designer Darko, who designed the Chronicorp flying vehicle, O2 delivery vehicle. He also designed this, and actually he had a character called Butterfly Jack, and I saw that on his website, and I thought that would really suit Ethan's time travel suit, and Seth bought it. I think that Darko did about 5 versions that also folded and different sizes, different colours, and we landed on this. And again, Tom and Marshall made this out of e-waste, bits of computer, bits of telephone bracket, and it got all the textures in there. So you solve 2 problems. You get a product and you save that stuff from going into landfill. Amazing. And another one of Darko's designs is hand prop called Archie, which then Bryce 3D printed as well. And then the holograms in VFX. Oh, I asked Oriana if she could join us tonight, and unfortunately she's very, very busy. So this page is a shout out to her work. Between herself, Gareth, myself, we made sure that the costumes and the sets were in harmony with each other. Not that they had to match and everything, but just in case, there was something different with a colour or a texture, something didn't quite suit being there. We didn't make that many tweaks, actually.
No. But you wanted it all to feel like it was coming out of the same world.
Exactly. Same world, same time, same place. And Chronicle a laboratory as well. It's uniforms and a lab. I'm going to let Gareth and Jono talk about this.
That is the most unflattering photo of my bottom, Jacinta.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Bottom left. No joking. Anyway, go on, Gareth.
Actually, so the funny story about this is that there's a plot point in the film for those that haven't seen it. Thank you, Jacinta. That's much more.
I think it's fine though.
I feel a lot better now. So there's a plot point where he puts a bunch of plants from the future into the time machine and sends them back to save the world. And so there's supposed to be this scene where all these plants are falling out of the time machine. And I remember our first AD, Rick Beecroft, coming to me and he said, "Now, how long are you going to need to dress all these plants into this time machine?" Now, and you can see the scale just by looking at the size of Jono's butt against the time machine there. That you know, it's big. It's a big a time machine. And but you know, he said to me, "Oh, how long do you need?" And I said, "Oh, you know, look, we'll probably need, you know, at least an hour, maybe a couple of hours." He said, "Oh, can you do it in 15 minutes?" And thankfully, I was heavily Botoxed at the time, so he couldn't tell that I was a little inside. But we went, "Hey, look, all we can do is we can try," you know. And so I went away and I sort of said to the set deck team, oh, and that's another point, is there's a lot of greens in this film and we didn't have a greens department. So set deck, everyone, it was all hands on deck. We all had to take care. Jono took the driver's seat with a lot of the greens work. But we had to come up with a plan to be able to overflow this time machine within 15 minutes with a whole crew standing there watching. We did.
Incredible. Amazing.
Well, the construction, it was foam, wasn't it? It was two round half pieces of foam. You can see the moss stuff going on first. And then we pre-stuck in as much as we could to be able to lift it in. And then I remember I was just in mutant zombie set deck mode and I was like, somebody bring me a Dixonia Antarctica fern, get me a philodendron. And like, it was just this menace of putting it in and dressing the front, soil on the front, and it sold the story. I mean, you can see in the picture there, it looks chock-a-block. And
it's not even the product, because we had pouring out and we had lots of plants like it, you know, and I do remember Rick Beecroft afterwards looking at me and going, I really didn't think you'd do that.
Amazing. Amazing. And he said it just after he pressed the button on his stopwatch.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, I just wanted to show some of Jono's sketches here. On weekends, Jono would send me these sketches and say, what do you think of this?
I forgot
And another Saturday, you built this greenhouse to protect our vines and other plants.
Where's the
Jono loves plants. Oops.
That moss actually came out of a place called Kaipo Forest. So I'm quite, I've used plants from Kaipo Forest before, and logs and trees, and one of the rangers is a good friend, and he just lets me go and take out the moss. I don't damage the area, but it's pine forest. So you'd take out this moss and it dries out, but as soon as you hit it with water, it goes green again. And so we had all real moss growing through, bark, bits of log, you know, and doing the layering there. The logs and things that I took out of that forest were a big part of that story of, you know, the forest taking over.
And looking down at the destroyed city there, I really like the detail of the Coke bottle. I think that was
right. Sure. Okay, thank you, Gareth. There's the destroyed city with some plants and so across the road. What I wanted to do, I'm sorry that played over you, Jono, but I've set these videos up to play automatically. But that was David Moosh, a runner and lighting designer, and driving the Bobcat. See, across the road, there was a demolishment going on. So we were taking this material and bringing it into the car park of the
that's right.
Of the Adelaide studios. And here it is the following day.
And this was one of those sets that just took a lot of imagination on our part, because it was a heavy VFX shot. You know, so we needed to know that what we were doing was going to work. And it really did.
And we had a few trees here and there, you know, a lot of them were already dressed in studio at that point. And so I actually ran to one of the nearest trees and chopped down some big branches. It you know, it was fine. I didn't get in trouble. But yeah, and use them as trees as well, because you know, we just needed more.
Yes. And Mark Vandenberg, he also briefed us on these O2 TMs. They're like ATMs, but they dispense oxygen. So there's meant to be a whole row of them here in VFX land. And they scanned and lined up the shot, and it worked really well. Oops, sorry, clear. Also, this is Lee Keogh.
That last week when we had, what was it, 8 sets or whatever it was, 8 or 9 sets. This was one of them.
This was one of them. Wow.
Mm,
But, you know, what's life without challenges?
exactly.
This is Leith Keogh. Leith started off in construction department, but he also does special effects and standby props.
Yeah,
And
lovely.
he did all of those things on this production, which was handy because he was in the construction department. He knew
how the sets went.
how the sets went and if there were any wild wolves. And that's how it looked on film. The Destroyed School, I worked with Seth on this in pre and done a model, and this was yet another tracking shot that he required. And this is the storyboards as well by Sam Uther. And I'll just see if I can, here's how it was on the day of shoot.
Oh, look at those buckets of sludge.
All variations of green.
It was all like moss and mold and things, wasn't it?
No, there's real soil as well on the bottom layer of the dirt there under where the tables are, and then you have to put leaves in to try to layer that little story up, and odd plants growing in cracks as you see it, you know, real life. But creating it in studio was so much fun.
It was, and Jono's knowledge of botany as well came very much in handy. We had another interior set. Well, it was an exterior, but we shot it in the studios, and Jono was carefully putting plants in like colonies and where they might be when they're up against rock.
Although, Jack, we weren't actually, because we don't know much about it, we weren't able to fact check him. So
That's right. That's right.
I could have always thought an absolute schmack.
We believe you. We believe you.
Yeah, we believed it.
well, it looked real, I guess.
Yeah.
It did. This, by the way, is a Photoshop job because I went through a few fonts. In fact, I think I asked the scenic artists to each have a go at writing it in a Sharpie. Then I overlaid that onto this photo, and that wasn't the chosen one. But again, it's looking at what we, you know, going through versions. And yet another setup, which I then sent to Earl Dresner. And by the way, these tables and chairs we got from the abattoir.
Ah, yes.
More plants. This was just another setup. I like to set scenes up in the computer, like in 3D, like 3ds Max. You can do some lighting and you can edit it as well and select camera angles and camera lenses.
And that's my studio set in the background, as you can. It's not. It's up in.
Yeah.
Up in the field.
There's just a bit of blurb there. Oh yes, about the pool noodles too. You know, some of the exterior locations wouldn't let us bring any real plants in, so the pool noodles were great because they were synthetic. Oh, Jono doesn't only do plants, he does rock graves. So we were at Ardina. Yeah, we were at Ardina here, and
yeah, that's it.
This was your setup. Here are some of my sketches of foreground elements, you know, things to set up in front of camera. Oh, wait, can I'm just going to close with a 5-minute video clip.
Earl Dresner is our DOP. He is an incredible combination of a beautiful creative, absolutely incredible aesthetic, and an incredible problem solver.
The beautiful thing about this film was that I had a lot of time to work with Seth. His ideas are bold and strong, and he doesn't kind of go half-hearted. So we wanted things to feel oppressive, to feel claustrophobic, to feel, you know, moody and dark and difficult and gritty, and you know, even to the point of not making people look beautiful, let them be sweaty and shiny or whatever they needed to be. Colour was really important as well. You know, we wanted to stay away from green because green is obviously, you know, not present in this time. We talked a lot about different colours, and you know, one of the things, the approaches that we took was trying to make it all feel really artificial. The sun's coming through hazy, smoky, oily clouds. The colours of the street are neon and LED. The biggest thing for me on this film, which I've been really thrilled about, is the pre-production and the amount of time I got to spend with Seth and with Jack, the production designer, being able to spend hours and days and even weeks sitting in a room going through everything, you know, with storyboards, with 3D diagrams of sets, and being able to work through that process so carefully allowed me to walk onto set on the first day of shooting, really knowing what the goal was, what the focus was, and what we were trying to achieve.
Storyboarding is a really important part of my process. You know, I come from a visual effects background, I'm a very visual storyteller. To me, the most valuable time that you have is when you're on set shooting, right? And all the planning, you know, there might be 10 years that goes into designing and planning a movie, and then you have a few weeks of pre-production of everybody getting on the same page. Then when you hit the go button, you turn the camera on, you get one moment. So for me, storyboards basically just enable everybody to turn up on the day and know exactly what it is that you're trying to get to.
This film is a massive undertaking for the art department, and Jack Leong, the production designer, has done an incredible job pulling all that together. I've spent a lot of time in pre talking to her about practical lighting, about sets, about colours, and one of my big goals on this film was to try and introduce as much prac lighting into the sets as we possibly could. It adds to the effect of having that artificial world. So we've incorporated a huge amount of LEDs, over 200 metres of LED into different sets.
Jacinta Leong, our amazing production designer, came onto the film 2 years ago and has basically not stopped since.
I've worked with Seth Lardy, our director, and Earl Dresner, our cinematographer, to achieve a look for this entire film. I've been able to generate drawings and have a team of concept illustrators map out the look. From there, we get the sets constructed. We started with very little colour because we wanted to sell that feeling of oppression and dystopia.
Green in the film, it's a very important colour because in the world of 2067, there's no trees.
Within this desaturated and muted colour palette of the city, we introduce green quite subtly.
For the people that are really keen observers, Xanthi, who represents the organic nature of life and this evolution of the person that Ethan needs to become, there's a moment in the first act of the film where she's painting, and she's only painting with red and blue, and she takes one little piece of green paint on her finger and she wipes it on his face. And you just see it for only a moment in the film. Maybe people won't notice, but it's this subtext of her giving him the gift of green, of trees, of nature.
Jude, my character, we call him sort of tunnel rats. Myself and Ethan, we're down there. I imagine that he would have sort of cut off some cables at one point, and in doing so perhaps sort of electrocuted himself, and he kept the ones that sort of didn't electrocute him, you know, obviously kill him, but he's kept them and he sort of turned them into a band. And so, I don't know if you can see that, Matt, but look at that, like the level of sort of detail that this guy's gone to. And just to sort of, you know, that kind of stuff. It's just small little details that whether you do or do not see. They've got an actor turning up asking for like a bracelet made out of cables, and yeah, sure, we'll make it happen. You know, it's just unbelievable.
It's been amazing, I think, coming to South Australia. One of the first attractions was the studio. The locations we found in South Australia were also incredible. There's just so much diversity in South Australia and in Adelaide that you can find almost anything.
One of the locations here in Adelaide was Port Adelaide, which we converted into a shanty town. Seth took a photo, which was his master shot. Then I asked a couple of concept illustrators to paint over that photo and create a desperate, desolate, depressing world of 2067.
We managed to get a street locked down in Port Adelaide, and the art department did an incredible job of dressing it. Now, we lit it up, it was over 100 metres of street that we had people walking down. And that's not easy to do in a lot of cities in Australia, so to have the opportunity to close that street down for 2 or 3 days and to dress it and light it and really set up our world with flying cars and explosions was a fantastic thing to be able to do.
We tested a few different lenses and we ended up on the Panavision C-Series Anamorphics, which I believe the first Star Wars movie was filmed on. The Panavision C-Series have this beautiful aesthetic that we associate with the classic movies movies from the 70s and the 80s, and especially the sorts of movies that I grew up on. I wanted the film to have this kind of uneasy characteristic to it, where it's just a subtext, it's really just tone. There's no lines in those lenses that are straight. Everything's a little bit bent. When things are out of focus, they go a little bit kind of distorted and things like that. And to me, just from a story standpoint, it really adds this sense of tension.
They were made in the 60s, they have a huge amount of character, and you know, they do some funny things at times, but they're beautiful. You know, they're soft in places and sharp in places, and they flare really interestingly, but they also photograph a face really beautifully as well.
Yes. Hey,
Okay. That was our team.
there was one thing I actually wanted to bring up as well. Can you go back to the white apartment?
In that film clip or in the slideshow?
The slideshow.
Right. One moment, please. Like the construction drawing or the photos?
Just the photos.
One moment, please.
Standing by.
We did say this was freestyling on the microphone. Bum, bum, bum. Bum, 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 bum.
With the freestyle.
Bum, 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 bum.
On the microphone.
Bum, 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 bum.
I haven't heard that song for ages. Love it. I'm going to listen to it on my drive home.
I'm just trying to share it now. I'm trying to share. There it is. Bum,
In your own time, Jack.
traveling. Oh.
We're all about pace here. So, yeah, now do you remember do you remember we reused the window?
Yes, we did. And I don't have that image.
No, that's okay. So, but did you want to talk a little bit about? I broke Jack a bit, and we had to save some money somewhere. So when we did Jackson's office, which was Deborah Malman's character, we had to reuse a piece of existing set because we just didn't have time to build it and didn't have the money to build it. And Jack managed to make it look like a completely different space. So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, budgetary constraints are your friends, I think. Whilst it's like, oh, we can't afford it, and it can be very disappointing, you just have to find other ways of being creative and also environmentally friendly to a point. So these windows here, I just don't have an image of Jackson's office to show what we did, but we reused that flattage as well as some other sides too. Actually, the white apartment set. Flattage. Yes. So we got another set out of this.
And we did the bedroom as well, remember?
That's right. Yes, the bedroom set was set up in the dining room. We took the table away, put a bed there with some lavender coloured sheets. So again, just having to be resourceful about it, and knowing when to campaign for more money and when to say, yep, okay, leave it with us. We'll have to work something else out.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up, Gareth.
No worries. It's all part of the resourcefulness of this job, wasn't it?
It was.
But what an experience, and what a product.
Indeed. Hey, is sorry to be distracted. Like I don't know why people think I have a short attention. Oh, look at that. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just I think we're gonna get wrapped up soon. I think so. Well, just one moment, please. Sorry. So big shout out to our team, as well as the entire department of the other departments of 2067 and the Adelaide studios.
Yeah. So now that we've kind of gone through all of that, does anybody in our participants list, anybody there got any questions or anything that they want to ask of us?
Questions?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm not single, just before anybody wants to go ahead and
Oh, you
ask.
stole my line. No, actually, no, I am single, sorry. Yes, look, if you know anyone, I'm very, very single. Very.
But by the way, 2067 is playing on Netflix.
It is. Oh, and also we should mention the actor awards, shouldn't we? Where that's
the
still
APDG Awards. The APDG Awards. Congratulations, Gareth.
Oh no, I wasn't talking about that.
Nominated as for art direction and set decoration for 2067, and Seth Larney was nominated in the visual effects for 2067, the visual effects category.
Oh, we've got some questions.
Chats.
Oh, well, Katie, thank you. Katie has said she'd love to work with us all. We're amazing. So you
correct. Katie, you're a registered sorry, I think Katie being a registered architect is a little overqualified, but all right.
But you know, we always need people that can draft, definitely. How many free weeks and how many shoot weeks? Right, this is going to take, isn't it? We had 6 weeks of pre, and it was a 5-week shoot. So that's not very long at all.
Yeah,
And then just
wow.
Yeah. So Katie, question about if our jobs are completed for a film at wrap, or do you continue all the way through for continuity and post-production?
Generally at wrap.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say I was welcome to I was welcome to keep observing with visual effects, but I was quite tired, so I decided not to, and I think they really did a great job, and it was a good surprise for me to see the last frame as well. I had gathered reference for all of the visual effects shots, but it was great just to see, you could see parts of what I'd found, but also new stuff, new material and new things that Seth would have discussed with them.
Yeah.
And also, I've been told, by the way, if the session suddenly ends, that's because Matt is there with a big red button.
Ready
so if we do finish the session, I want to thank everyone who's participated tonight, everyone who's asked questions, everyone who's taken the time to listen to us and hopefully learn things. And you know, I think we're a big film family who enjoy what we do. So thank you, and thank you, Gareth, Jono.
Hello,
Matt,
Claire.
APDG.
I worked with you on Mr. In Between in Sydney.
And hi, Karina.
Who's a designer.
I know Karina. So Karina has asked, why did you have to pitch for the film?
Why did you have to be? Because when producers and directors, including Seth Larney and Lisa Shaughnessy, are looking for their production designers, hair makeup artists, cinematographers, costume designers, we go in for interviews, and they sometimes send us the script and we have a read and we put forward our ideas, and that's how we get selected. Hope that answers the question, Karina.
Yeah, I suppose it's about it's about the director and knowing that the designer and the director are on the same page and speaking the same language before it's too late.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, exactly. You have to like just getting interviewed for a job.
Yeah. And as you can see by all of that that pitch deck that Jacinta did, it's no surprise why she got the job.
Thanks, Gareth.
Yay, we love Jacinta.
Yeah, it's fine.
Love you.
Thank you, everyone, for having me.
No worries. So were there any other questions, or is that you're all well fed with information?
Look, before we get cut off too, if anyone would like to see my time-lapse videos on YouTube, there are videos of wine. Wine sounds good, Claire. There are videos of set builds under construction, and you can see all departments doing their bit, like steelwork, carpentry, plaster, set dressings, scenics, lighting.
These are famous. She does everything. They're really fascinating. You start with an empty soundstage and you just watch it all happen.
Yes. So anyway, thought I'd just give myself a plug there.